Guys, and welcome to episode 6 of High Rollers, the review series for the most expensive classic cars that are featured on GT6. And in this episode we're featuring the 1964 Shelby Daytona Cobra Coupe. Now incidentally, some of you who are a bit more astute perhaps will probably be thinking, wasn't this episode supposed to be out yesterday? Well, yes, it was, and yesterday's episode was supposed to be today, but I guess I must have subconsciously thought it was Friday yesterday for some reason. But hey, these things happen, and it's here now. So, what does this car have to offer for the money? Because all of the cars in this series are, no way of putting it otherwise, expensive. They are expensive, even the cheaper models, this car included. It's a 4.5 million credit car. So, for the money, what does it have to offer? Well, it's powered by a 4.7 litre V8, naturally aspirated, but when fully tuned it's supercharged, and it puts out a respectable 605 horsepower, which is pretty good for a 289 cubic inch V8. It also puts out 566 pound-feet of torque. But let's face it, you don't buy this car for its power. You can see in the dealership that it's not going to be one of the fastest classics. You can just tell. It doesn't look the fastest, it doesn't have the power to be the fastest. That's not why you buy the car. The reasons why you buy the car are its trackability, its handling, its weight, its downforce. And speaking of weight, this car is one of the lightest classics. It weighs only 1,043 kilos, and thanks to that, combined with its respectable power output, it has a very respectable power to weight ratio of 580 horsepower per tonne, which is great for a track car, great for a classic car, and bodes well really for its track performance. Now incidentally, it sits at 604 pp when fully tuned, but I would recommend, if you buy this car, slightly detuning it to 600 pp. Because it's just as competitive at that level as increasing it by 4 pp, and at the 600 pp level, it's actually one of the best track cars in the game, especially in the racing car class, and more specifically even in the classic car class. In fact, at the classic car 600 pp level, there's virtually nothing else that can beat this car around the track. Perhaps the Chaparral 2J, but that car is, all things considered, completely OP with its fan car system. And let's face it, without the fan system, that car does not handle that well. Obviously you can't experience what that's like on the game, but in real life, mid-race, the Chaparral 2J's fan system actually failed, and it almost crashed. So it's clearly not a great handling car without the fan system. Now on the game, obviously it does have the fan system, and as such it's one of the quickest cars in the game. But I doubt many people in classic lobbies would allow that car to go up against the more genuine, being a relative term, classic racers. And of those more mainstream classic racing models, the Daytona is pretty much the best one you can get, to be completely honest. It's not necessarily the absolute fastest for top speed, but in pretty much every other way, it's almost unbeatable. And to be honest, that actually extends beyond just the classic car class. That extends also to racing cars in general. At the 600 pp, this is one of the best cars you can get for a surprisingly wide array of tracks, in fact. Because although the top speed isn't quite as quick as, say, a Miura or the Chaparrals, it still does 225 under its own power, which is more than enough for most tracks. Say Lasarte, Monza, any kind of track where you get those kind of speeds. Or here at Daytona, for instance. But the real reason why you buy this car, as we said, is the cornering ability. And for that, and by extension its average speed because of that cornering ability, is, as I said, virtually unmatchable in the classic car class. You can take corners so quickly in this car that you leave far more powerful models, seemingly superior models, in your wake. It's so good around the track, this car. Tracks like the Nuremberg Ring, Le Mans, Monza, Daytona, Laguna Seca. This car can just take on any track and give you a great lap with very minimal tuning. And it's actually one of the most beginner-friendly high rollers cars in the game as well, because it's very forgiving, very easy to drive. There's a shockingly good amount of grip, which is ironic for a Cobra. And it's just a brilliant all-round track car. I can't really explain that any more than I have. It's just really good. And if you've never driven it, there's no real way for me to explain that anymore without you actually driving it. And if you're looking to buy an expensive classic, but one that not only looks good and potentially goes fast, but one which is genuinely competitive, because let's face it, not all of them are, in the broad strokes of racing, that competitive. This one is, and that is a big advantage to have when you're paying out that kind of money, to know that not only it's a great collector's piece, but it's a collector's piece that you can pull out and beat modern cars with. You can't put a price on that. That's just innately cool. And this car is, as you can probably tell from the things I'm saying, my favourite, pretty much my favourite classic car in the game, and in my top 10 favourite cars in the game overall. If you have not tried this car, I would strongly recommend that you do so, because it's one of the more affordable classics and is extremely good all round. So, that's it for this episode. Incidentally, as a little bonus tip, you can actually also paint this car, which is a nice bonus to have for a racing model. But that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.